Thank you for inviting me. It is obviously good for us to talk about, you're at the cusp of doing something really meaningful in the context of Pakistan. Where we are as a country, financial inclusion and poverty alleviation are two of the biggest challenges. And Jazz is also involved in that space, and we will talk about that. So that's why I'm saying that we can go off topic. The topic was a little bit about how the workplace is evolving, because that also in a way, directly or indirectly, relates to when people are trying to get out of poverty. Are they thinking about the traditional workspace? Are they becoming entrepreneurs? If they're becoming entrepreneurs, how are they going to use technology and those things related to that? Where does fintech come into play? Where does financial services come into play? We'll cover some of those things, right? Very briefly, I have to start off with a little bit of a commercial about Jazz. Hopefully, at least 40% of you should be our customers. Maybe in this crowd a little bit more. But we are one of the oldest telecom companies in Pakistan. Just celebrated our 25th anniversary. 61 million customers, about 30 million internet customers. And in Pakistan, we don't really talk about it. We just talk about we're a telecom company, but we're actually an internet company now. Because internet in Pakistan actually comes through mobile. We have very few fixed line broadband fiber going directly to the home. So anybody who actually sees anything related to internet actually see it on their smartphones. As a matter of fact, there's this topic going on since yesterday about regulating social media companies, and they must have a presence. I don't know if you saw that or not, right? And those companies must have a presence in Pakistan, and if they publish something, the CEO of that company could be liable for a fine of 500 million if it's not consistent with our state vision or whatever. And the question, actually, I just started thinking about it. Is it good to regulate or not? So, so one thing is, from a taxation perspective, these companies like Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, they make money from Pakistan. So one perspective is that they should have some presence over here. And I think maybe it's on this thing, right? So if you look at these numbers, they're fairly impressive numbers. So, but these are vultures as far as I'm concerned, because they don't really exist, but they exist. So they don't really contribute anything directly to the economy by paying license fees or investing in infrastructure. Yet the loyalty with most of our customers with Facebook would be higher than there would be between them and Jazz or Telenor or Zong, right? They may change their SIM, but they still want to be on the social medium of their platform. So the first question that I had in mind was that, is it fair to get those companies to be here? So I'm going off topic straight away, and I want to engage you guys. What do you think should be our approach towards these companies in Pakistan, and whether social medium should be regulated or not?
Their creativity comes from their teams which are based abroad. If you look at Modi in India, he made a very direct connection with the Facebook and tried to bring them in for his own nefarious purposes. But in spite of all this, you cannot force them to come and open an office over here. They might not see the purpose in that, and they may feel being curtailed.
So purpose could be they have 45 million customers, and if the regulation comes to a point where either you exist in this market or don't exist in this market, that may become an imperative. That's one thing. But the thing around regulating social media, should we regulate, whether they open the office or not? Should it be regulated or not? And you know that Facebook went through a big Senate hearing after the Cambridge Analytica and various other things. The question is, are they social media companies or are these news companies? So when a news company actually publishes a report, you actually ask them whether the news was authentic or not, whether it was defamatory or not. Let me just ask you, where do you get your source of news these days? We believe them, right? We believe everything that's written over there. How many of you know about deepfakes? Deepfakes, right? So I hope you guys don't do it like I'm saying something, but you can actually go program it, and like different words could actually be coming out of my mouth as if I said those things. So what is the obligation? Where do you draw the line? Okay. This is evolution. बिल्कुल सही कह रही हैं. सो क्वेश्चन ये है कि मैं लाइन ड्रॉ कर लूँ कि अगर आपने कहा है कि देखें जी महंगाई बढ़ गई है पाकिस्तान में, कोई आगे से कह दे कि यार ये तो एंटी स्टेट बात कर रहा है, बिकॉज इसकी रेपरकशंस ये हो सकती हैं कि लोग जो हैं वो सारे के सारे नर्वस हो जाएंगे, यहाँ कर दो। या मैंने किसी मिनिस्टर को क्रिटिसाइज़ कर दिया कि ये पॉलिसी अच्छी नहीं, बिल्कुल सही बात है। वेयर डू यू ड्रॉ द लाइन?
Because the governments also churn out a lot of propaganda that
Sure.
may or may not be actually true. So who is going to regulate?
Absolutely. These are both these quick questions, right? So, you know, the one thing that we've heard in the last 4 or 5 years is, you know, this phrase called fake news, right? Everybody is doing fake news, fake agendas, right? You call it PR, whatever else, keep on lying as much as you want to lie, and somebody will start believing it, right? So facts, or as they say, don't let facts spoil a good story. That's what's happening right now. So anyway, I went off track, but I just thought it was interesting because this is a very recent development. They have brought this thing forward to the cabinet. I don't fully support it, but I could see a point because most of these companies which started off as connecting people, now we rely on them to propagate our messages. So do they have a responsibility to check whether that message is correct or not? And if it is not, what is the obligation that they have to certain things, right? It started off with blasphemy in Pakistan 2011. Both of you guys were working me at Telenor, you know, like we were off YouTube for 3 years in Pakistan, right? So do we want to go through another one of those things? This is going to be a dialogue, and you know, like I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but certainly you all need to comment and let your voices be heard before they get silenced again. All right. So the landscape in Pakistan is changing. It's not just the 60 million customers that I have. They have loyalty with Facebook. They have loyalty with WhatsApp. And if we have to survive and thrive in this environment, I have to look at the OTTs, the over-the-top players who actually, you know, again, I said from a telecom perspective, they don't invest in Pakistan. They don't pay the license fee. They don't really do anything else. They come in, they have useful value. But quite honestly, when I think of it at a very nationalistic level, and this is a criticism for all of these companies all over the world, including France, is that if you're generating from a certain environment, if you're generating income from a certain environment, you should give back to that environment in terms of taxation. Right? So France basically said that any company which has got more than $25 million of revenue has to pay a certain tax, American companies. Trump reacted by putting in extraordinarily high taxes on their wines, and you know, like, and so on the story went. But Lebanon tried to do this thing by putting $2 a week or $2 a month on WhatsApp. Their government crashed. I don't think that's going to happen here in Pakistan, but these are some of the evolving challenges of the digital world, right? So I have seen literally off and on 25 years on how the phone was a communication tool to connect two people. And now it is the remote control to your life, and I keep on saying that because everything you do from your smartphone, right? It's the remote control to your life. You use it for communication, information, entertainment, education, commerce, poverty alleviation, security. So this is becoming more and more important in whatever we do, right? So that's the point that I wanted to make over here. We are also going through another revolution. You guys obviously know about the fourth industrial revolution. And when I was growing up, which was, 25, 30 years ago, it was basically engineering, doctors, and I don't know what else, accountant maybe, yeah, I studied accountancy. The jobs that my kids are going to do, my kid is in second year of his university, I think are going to be very different. And the jobs that are existing right now, app developer, 25 years ago there was no app developer, right? Data scientist, all these things. So ये सारी की सारी चीज़ें change हो रही हैं. And we get really scared about this fourth industrial revolution and what's going to happen to the jobs, etc., etc. But when we think about it, these shifts have happened in the world before also. So back in early 19th century, like 90% of American workforce was employed in agriculture. Today it is less than 2%. Yet the agricultural produce is maybe 10x more than what was 140, 50 years ago. So seismic shifts do happen. Mining is another industry, right? Like people were involved in mining, but then the big machineries came in, etc., and people moved away from doing physical thing, and remotely you could do these things. So I think while we go through this nervousness on what is going to happen to our jobs, there is still hope that if we are going to be smart human beings, we will have to upskill. So regular commoditized jobs will start going away. That's just a reality. But more value-added jobs will be there. The biggest challenge that comes over here in this particular thing is really from AI and machine learning. And that will take away a number of things, like not just the process automation, repetitive commoditized tasks. And I will give some examples on what we have done in our organization and how we have moved away from those things, because while we want to create workforce, and this is always a challenge for a CEO or a leader, you're answerable to your employees. And they want security, they want safety. But the workforce dynamics are also changing. You employ them to do a job, but the job is going to change and maybe become extinct. And they have to recognize that, and you have to be honest with them and give them the opportunity that their skill set can keep on changing and improving with the passage of time. But if they're doing the same job and that job will disappear, you have to actually get them to either see the light of the day so that they do something about it, or you create an environment where their learning can also increase, right? So this is what we need to do, because sooner or later, a lot of these jobs over here, right? Okay, maybe construction work is a little bit different, but we just talked about the mining thing. Telemarketeers, and I will talk about what happened to our own call center. So we've started going on to have Jazz World as a self-service thing, right? When I arrived here 4 years ago, we had about 3,000 people in call center, taking 180 million calls a day. Sorry, 180,000 calls a day. Today, we have about 50% more customers. We take 110,000 calls a day, and we don't have a call center. Yes, there is still an outsourced call center, but we have a great self-care app, which is an engagement app, and people have started migrating over here. So now 4 million of our customers are on this app. They were basically calling to find out what their balance is, how do I put in a certain ringtone, and we realized that the reason why customers call is because there is complexity in our product, because we have not made something super easy. And at that time, obviously, there weren't enough smartphones, etc., etc. And it was a very difficult conversation going and talking to the employees, especially at call centers, and you've been in that business, Rehan, that you go and tell somebody over there and say that, I think we're going to outsource you, or your job doesn't exist. But you have to have that conversation. And one of the main reasons why enough of digitalization doesn't happen, and especially in governmental circles, is because when you show a great, exciting picture of the future, right? Okay, let's just talk about something. I'm sure you all graduated from schools. You've got your class photos and group photos. Yeah? What do you look in a group photo? The first thing that you look in it?
Ourselves.
You look at yourself, right? Great. When you look at this exciting picture of the future, what do you want to see? Are you in there or not? Right? So if I go and tell them, listen, I'm going to have a great future business, and Jazz is going to be worth this million of people or whatever else, and we're going to do everything automated, you're going to say, well, lovely story, but where am I in it? So that is how they drag things down. This is what happens with government, unfortunately, right? So we're talking about cashless environment. We're talking about digitizing the governmental workforce. What will happen to the poor PN, whose job and skill set is only to take a file from one office to the other? And I don't say this condescendingly. This is a challenge for the government. How will they actually re-employ that person if the person hasn't done anything? Think about the person, like the most obvious one is lift operator. The guy, poor guy, sits in the lift on a stool the whole day, presses buttons. But when you have these smart cards and everything else, and you automatically know that I'm going to 16th floor or 12th floor, you press that thing, you don't even go inside the elevator and press another button. Forget about, using enough intelligence. The card from the reception will automatically tell you that you're going to the second floor. It will stop. What happens to that guy? So this is a big challenge for governments. This is a big challenge for those environments, developing environments, where people do not have enough education to reskill themselves. And that is why, for political imperatives, the digital transformation or any kind of transformation doesn't happen in the governments. And I struggle with this thing. It's not that they don't like it. The other thing about digitalization, we're going to talk more about it, but the other thing about digitalization is that it creates transparency, not only speed, right? Digitalization creates transparency. You leave your fingerprints on every single transaction. Just like DHL thing, where your parcel is at this stage, it has been loaded up over here, it is now at this airport, it will arrive at this time, right? With transparency, somebody will know that the email was sent, it is now stuck over here. People will be forced to respond. And when it comes to the context that we want to talk about and you guys are all working on is financial inclusion, any kind of a digital finance leaves a fingerprint. What does that do? It eliminates corruption. There is just no way that you can be completely digital on finance. Yes, you will try to do other things, but there will be fingerprints, there will be trails that will be left behind, and somebody will get caught. So there will always be vested interests which will slow these things down. In my company, at Jazz, we see that the traditional marketing will go away, right? It will be replaced by analytics. So we have actually tools now that also help us ascertain that if I'm putting a billboard, should my logo be on the right side, in the middle? Is the model tall enough, not tall enough? Should it be on the right side, left side, this color, that color? You do A/B testing, and all of those things we actually find out before we actually put a big billboard and waste money on the skin. The same thing is now happening on the app. So we've got this really cool, and some of you guys, if you want to come to our National Incubation Center over here, you'll get to see that we've got these really fancy glasses, and we get a customer to look at an app, and we can trace where the eyes go on the app, right? So when we're developing an app or a skin of the app, we know where the customer will go, what the clickability is, because it's all, this industry is on revenue on clicks, and what is the attention span on that app before somebody closes it and goes somewhere else. So this is how sophisticated the workplace is now becoming in terms of doing this thing. So the bad old days or the good old days that, you know, half of my marketing is wasted, but I don't know which half, that is becoming less and less of a truism today. And that's why companies like Google and Facebook are really valuable, because they understand our behavior a lot better than we do ourselves. So that's a changing shift. I can skip this thing, you know, like most companies, workplaces, they're going to change. Your office is also slightly different from a typical office, but what we have started doing at Jazz is that we allow people to work from home as long as they've got connectivity. I don't want to say it too publicly, but I hardly go to the office before 10 o'clock. It doesn't really matter, you know, like the concept of office is changing. Office is when you're productively employed. What do you need to be productively employed is a cell phone. So if I'm working on my cell phone, 6 o'clock in my garden, I'm working. Office is not a physical space anymore. So it's really important to understand, you know, like what is your office culture like that? It's like, what is your productivity culture? That is a more important question to ask rather than asking what is your office culture like that. आप 9 बजे पहुंचते हो. अभी तक मैं कंपनीज को देखता हूँ, टाइम कार्ड्स हैं, 9:15 बजे के बाद वो फिर चाय काट देते हैं, ये कर देते हैं, वो कर देते हैं, पेंसिल. It's just very old fashioned, right? The millennials and everybody else, if you have to create a workspace for future, you have to attract not people like yourself, you have to attract people who will be paying your pensions, right? So you have to create an environment which is attractive to them, and it's got nothing to do with your biological age. It has got to do with whether you're forward leaning or not. So that's really important. And we try to create, as I keep on saying, that if we have to be relevant Jazz for the next 25 years, we have to keep on delivering to the expectations of our customers. And to be able to do that, we have to really get the workforce which will be able to do that. And that workforce is not going to be constrained by sitting in offices. They want purpose, they want impact, you know, like anywhere else in the world. These are slightly more privileged, demanding employees like my kids who will join the workforce, you know, like, okay, why am I doing this thing? Because they need meaning more than, and you're like, I believe that most of you over here also believe in a meaning to be working in an organization like this, right? It's not just a 9 to 5, do this thing. There's a bigger imperative. That imperative is, can I have an impact on taking 5 million people from below $190 a day to something higher, right? That is the imperative that brings you over here. So likewise, every organization which is going to pass the test of time is going to have a little bit more than a transactional relationship. It has to be transformational, and that is what the workforce of future is progressively going to look at. This may be of more interest to you because I know you guys are involved in this thing. So 5-6 years ago, we decided to go into banking, microfinance banking, but that was just the ticket of entry. The main game over here is really fintech and Jazz Cash. So as everybody has a mobile phone, it is easier to give them a bank on their phone than to bring them to a physical bank somewhere else. And what do you do in a bank? You borrow, you lend, you transact. For those things, you don't have to go to a physical location, right? So that's very old-fashioned. Yes, banks will still exist. I don't think that even with the transformation that bank branches would completely disappear, even in more developed countries. But by and large, more people will visit them less often, right? And they don't need to for any purpose, even buying stocks, complicated wealth management products, certainly not for opening a bank account or a checkbook or whatever. So our foray into this thing, financial services, has been quite rewarding. We have today more than 7 million mobile accounts. That's about 16% of all the bank accounts in Pakistan. On the digital services side, we do about 55% of all transactions that happen on a phone. They happen through Jazz Cash, much bigger than Easy Pesa. I had to say that. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? We haven't even started the game yet. And of these 7 million, less than 1 million are actually using a smartphone. So one of the biggest transitions that we have to see is get people to move on to a smartphone. And I keep on working quite a lot with the government, I say कि जी अगर आपने एक नारा लगाना है ना, जिस तरह रोटी कपड़ा मकान था, आजकल की ज़िंदगी में है यार, internet for all, a smartphone in every hand. Right? Not because I'm in this business, but this is the foundation for everything else that you have to do today. Fintech, agri-tech, ed-tech, right? Medical care, everything will rely on this thing. So हम लोग इसको सिर्फ ये देखते हैं, अभी तक सैडली कॉन्सेप्ट हमारे मुल्क में यही है कि यार रिच मैन्स टॉय है, ये इतना टैक्स फ़ोन लेके आता है, स्मार्टफोन लेके आता है, इसके ऊपर टैक्स बढ़ा दो. वो ये नहीं देखते कि यार यूर किलिंग द गोल्डन गूज. ये इंडस्ट्री बढ़ेगी, आपको एक तो हुकूमत इतना टैक्स लगाती है, इसके ऊपर GST और विद होल्डिंग टैक्स, 1/3 of our revenue goes back. So the more profitable or revenue generating this industry is, the more it goes to the government. But there's another imperative. A 10% increase in broadband penetration increases your GDP by 1.4%. Right? This is an enablement. This is part of infrastructure. This is not any longer a luxury thing. It's a necessity. Internet is the electricity of our age. Data is the new oil. And most of the countries have started recognizing this thing. We are slightly behind. And I hope the penny drops soon, because today poverty, all those things, you will see one factor. Those who do not have a phone, a smartphone, getting further away. The divide now is clearly based on smartphone or not smartphone. And I would encourage you guys to find either corroborate this thing or dispute. But that is my hypothesis, that the digital divide will actually accentuate your economic divide that we have experienced so far. Right? So it's a hugely important thing for us. Pakistan has a huge opportunity. I think going cashless, we talked about this thing earlier, is a huge opportunity in terms of increasing transparency and eliminating corruption. What plagues a third world country or a third world economy? It's mostly corruption. Right? Because a lot of our wealth that gets collected by the government does not get utilized at the right places. This is, okay, now it may not eliminate the corruption of building a much bigger airport than building a smaller airport, or having a higher spec than a lower spec, but a lot of transactional petty corruption will start disappearing when you start doing this thing, moving towards digital cash as opposed to cash. But by mentoring them and by giving them real world data so that they can test their hypothesis and improve their products. So that's what we're trying to do. It's not a CSR thing. This is what we genuinely believe that is the future. If there is a good enough idea, then we invest in it. So that's what we're doing in this space, in trying to help build the ecosystem of entrepreneurship in Pakistan. You open it up for a dialogue, right? While there is certainly a benefit for trickle down leadership and communication, but it doesn't, you can't just be a loudspeaker and keep on saying, you got to do this thing, you got to be motivated. Motivation comes from within you, right? When you open it up and just try to understand and relate to that, then it's important. When you focus only on let's grow by 20%, that is not motivational enough, right? If you say I want to make an impact, I want people to really benefit from inclusion or those things, I think those are better tools to get the buy-in from there. But I think also turn it around and say, what excites you, right? And at different levels, and I'm sure you've gone through the Maslow thing, at different levels, there are going to be different needs, right? For somebody, it's just going to be, I need to feed my family. My family invested a lot in my college, and I need to get a secure job so that I can keep on paying and helping them out. There's nothing wrong with that. For some people, it may be, or that could be the starting job. After that component is done, they move to the next one till they get to the actualization thing. So, thank you. So, I think by engaging, two-way engaging, you will be able to do that. I think just being a loudspeaker may not be enough. Programmers and developers working for the rest of the world in terms of working in this space, right? Content development, like I said, I don't have a specific answer, so I don't want to guess that. Should we have our own platform? So the whole thing about this network is the network size. Will we create a Facebook of our own with 2 billion people? It looks unlikely. There will be some new revolution. It may not be a new Facebook, right? We tried to do a messenger or an engagement platform with Vion, and for a variety of reasons, it didn't work, right? But there are companies around the world who are still trying to do this, operator-led engagement platforms, BIP in Turkey, IO in South Africa, TeloTalk in Pakistan. So there are a whole bunch of other messengers. But मैसेंजर और इस किस्म का जो प्लेटफॉर्म होता है उसमें सबसे बड़ी चीज़ ये होती है कि और कितने लोग हैं आपके नेटवर्क के ऊपर. I think this is my thing, that there will be a growing need. Two of the biggest challenges that every CEO in technology faces, one is cybersecurity and the other is data privacy, right? These are becoming bigger challenges, but just like good guys, bad guys use social media also. And governments are becoming more and more paranoid about their digital infrastructure being invaded, about their populace being influenced. So I think not just here in Pakistan, but elsewhere also, there will be a growing trend towards eliminating content, reining in fake news. I think that will happen whether the countries have their own equivalents or not. And I don't think for some of these really big behemoths, big tech, there will be another equivalent anytime soon. So YouTube is the biggest television channel in the world. I don't think that we will have another YouTube, right? Can they be regulated? Would they like to be regulated in Pakistan? Maybe not. Where will we get to? Maybe they will say, you know what, Pakistan is not important enough. I make $50 million of advertising revenue in Pakistan. In the scheme of things, I will cross out Pakistan. That is a likely but an unfortunate scenario. So,
is it creating another data platform to generate enough data to create active accounts and more than transactional accounts? Or is it that we have to be now sitting ducks and there would be Google this and Google this to come and capture us?
Yeah. So I don't think we have failed. I would say that we have not succeeded as yet. Failure is when you give up. So I think we should learn from the past, dissect. The issues are not about the richness of data and whether we have a unified common scoring model and lending or not, right? In this landscape of fintech, the starting point is payments. If we start increasing, and by the way, these 7 million are actually active on a monthly basis, right? So they do at least one financial transaction, which could be a top up, which could be making a bill payment or doing a domestic remittance. These are the biggest. Then what we have to do, even for these, it's a struggle to keep them active every month, right? I have to literally bribe them with 50 free minutes or do something else, right? Which a telco can do, but that's why the SIMs haven't worked, right? So other than Easy Pesa and Jazz Cash, nobody has that muscle or entanglement to keep these even on a oxygen mask active, right? What is missing? The use case. What's wrong with the use cases? What do you do? I have a Jazz Cash account. I mean, how many places can I use it other than my own cafeteria? Achha, usme kya hota hai? We have to go to the retailers. We have to have a common QR. There are a whole bunch of things that I don't want to, but perhaps you already know. The issue is not richness of data and whether the telcos know enough or whether the telcos want to share enough. And we were having this discussion earlier with Rehan. or maybe Ali. There has to be some governmental intervention on forcing digital payments, right? On eliminating cash, and they should do it from a corruption elimination perspective. Government to person, person to government. आप चलान देते हैं, बाकी सारी चीज़ें करते हैं, जब तक डिजिटल पेमेंट्स कैश से ज़्यादा महंगी होंगी नहीं काम करेगा. और यही एग्जांपल मैं दे रहा था, मैं इस्लामाबाद ट्रैफिक पुलिस वाले को मैंने चलान दिया जैज़ कैश के ऊपर. आई पेड 20 रुपीज़ एक्स्ट्रा. वाई? आई गो टू मोटरवे एम प्लाजा M2 का वो जो होता है ई टोल, 600 के बजाय 615 रुपये, बिकॉज FWA wants to have their cut. FWA, right? They should actually think about it completely the opposite way around, because money goes into their thing they don't have. Cash is expensive. The transportation of cash is expensive. It takes time. So when I pay Islamabad police, guess what happens? The money goes straight into Islamabad police bank account, straight right there and then. I don't have to go collect my ड्राइवर्स लाइसेंस 1 day later, फिर उधर देखेंगे, फिर अच्छा उसमें क्या होएगा, पहले जब मैं जाऊँगा 1 दिन एक्स्ट्रा लगेगा. अगर संडे पे कोई बंदा एबटाबाद से आया है, पाकिस्तान इस्लामाबाद में चलान हो गया, 1 दिन वो एक्स्ट्रा ठहरेगा. फिर अगले दिन जाएगा, कहेगा जी मेरा चलान हुआ है, आप वो दें. पहले तो जो बंदा उसका ड्राइवर्स लाइसेंस देखेगा 500 रुपये उसको ढूंढेगा, उसको नहीं मिलेगा. उसके बाद फिर वो जाएगा, कहेगा जी आप नेशनल बैंक में जाके जमा करें. प्रोडक्टिविटी लॉस देखें. इस चीज़ को इंसेंटिवाइज करना चाहिए कि ये जल्दी हो जाए, और हम उसको ऑपोजिट करें. सो गवर्नमेंटल इंटरवेंशन इज़ रियली वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट in making some of these interventions, right? Safari and Kenya and M-Pesa, everybody talks a lot about. They didn't really have a state bank. So if you go and ask state bank people, they say that was actually the failed model, right? In the telco world, it was great because it was a telco-led banking thing. So the telcos basically filled the gap for the banking thing, right? Everywhere else in the world, it's a bank-led model. So the issue, two things I just want to, went on to speak a little bit longer. Two things: we haven't failed, we haven't succeeded as yet. The second thing is, it is not data enrichment and whether you want to share data. It is more around stickiness from use cases, and that stickiness will only happen if at a retail level you can use your wallet. If you cannot use your wallet at a retail level, this will not fly. So what we need as an industry, and this is where us and EasyPaisa and everybody else should be able to collaborate, is create more payment acceptance points. What can possibly go wrong is that there's a merchant, और आपने ये शहरों में देखा होगा या बड़ी दुकानों में, उसके सामने 6 POS पड़े होते हैं. ये अल्फला का है, ये HBL का है, ये उसका किसी और कंपनी का है, ये कीनू का है, etc. etc. right? That is wastage. Each one of those machines costs $140-$50, right? That is the duplication. We want to go with the common QR, ताकि वही बंदा इजी पैसा वाला भी वही इस्तेमाल करे, जैज़ वाला भी वही इस्तेमाल करे, कोई और थर्ड प्लेयर आना चाहता है वही करेगा, वरना हम ये फिर से ट्रिक मिस करेंगे.
Amir, my name is Faisal. I am looking after the micropayment gateway. Just a question: what is actually stopping Jazz Cash from increasing the number of point of sales merchants? Why can't you have 50,000, 100,000 merchants available in the areas where other POS machines are not accepted?
That's one of our biggest challenges and areas of focus, right? Again, I'm working with others so that we don't go. होता क्या कि हम एक मर्चेंट के पास जाएंगे, इजी पैसा की टीम आएगी, वो कहेंगे जी इस वाले को उतार दो, आप हमारा लगा लें. So I'm trying to build collaboration in the industry, right? The models could be different with all due respect. Somebody wants to go with a walled garden, and they say, yeah, I don't want to be number one, I want to be the only one, right? But that's a great slogan, but maybe to build the scale is not the right one. We need to find a common platform, right? When we talk about payment gateways, you don't want to have your own gateway, right? The gateway by definition is that it talks to others. And the same should be the concept for acceptance points, especially in this environment. So that's what we're working in. But a lot of focus on increasing merchants. और ये इसी तरह होएगा, पहले फर्स्ट ईयर पे जाएंगे, सेकंड ईयर पे जाएंगे. we're trying to create a local environment कि इधर एक पूरी की पूरी कम्युनिटी जो है उसके ऊपर आप चली जाए. दूसरी चीज़ आती है, again goes back to transparency. Some of these, as you go from, आपने ये पता होएगा, since you guys operate in this space, L0, L1 वाले जो accounts होते हैं, जब accounts बढ़ते जाते हैं उसकी KYC बढ़ती है. अब रिटेलर्स की जब KYC बढ़ती है, वो फिर कहते हैं कि यार ये तो मुझसे आप कल को टैक्स वाला भी आ जाएगा. अब ये हमने काम शुरू किया था, FBR साहब वाले जो थे, वो 50,000 से ज़्यादा की ट्रांजैक्शन करेंगे, CNIC देंगे. सो यहाँ लोगों की स्केप्टिसिज्म रिटेल लेवल पे भी बहुत है कि यार हम फंसे जाएंगे टैक्स नेट में. So there are certain social, societal barriers that we have to overcome in our educational process. Good. Ji.
This is a more general question, but what's your vision for jazz beyond your tenure there?
Okay, for I think I would say a good leader, the ambition should be that the company stays on and succeeds after they have left, right? So I would like to come back and say, well, I used to work over here and look, this company has become even better, right? So we need to start putting in those things that this outlasts me and many people like me, so that this goes on. And we have to keep on evolving with the passage of time and keep our ear close to the ground in terms of what the customers need, want, and to pivot according to them. This is a classic example, the one that we've been talking about, right? We're going to be, inshallah, the biggest bank in Pakistan, not by the balance sheet side, but by number of customers, right? Because that is one of the biggest unmet opportunities in Pakistan. So one of the biggest ones that I see beyond telecommunications is fintech, and that's why we're literally throwing our kitchen sink at it right now. And Mobilink and Jazz, well, we don't call it Mobilink anymore. Jazz is going to be more of a internet company. It's going to be more of a fintech company. In 5, okay, maybe in 10 years, the concept of charging for calls or for internet is going to be very outdated, right? It still gives us 70-80% of our revenue today, but 2 stages of transition. First one, we have gone into an adjacency, which is fintech. Then we move from being a telecom company to a technology/internet company. And where I see it next is to become a complete data company, where we know a lot more about our customers, just like Google and Facebook. So we're probably not going to be, we're still going to build towers and 5G and whatever else in SIMs, if SIMs are still relevant, but we're not going to be a telecom company. Gee.
Do you in the future see maybe selling data to advertising and marketing companies?
We already do. Good and bad question. No, question is good. The answer, the answer could be slightly tricky, because then it goes back to the privacy versus security thing. So I think selling anonymized data is okay, right? And these are the areas where newer regulation will come in, and sometimes it becomes very intrusive and scary at times. You know, like you just do a search on some other platform, and on your Instagram, you know, like you get the same thing, right? So a lot of these things are connected, and that's the problem with big data, that, you know, there's a whole bunch of things which are connected, but these deep insights also help, right? So Apple got into Apple Watch. Apple doesn't give data away, right? But that data on your hand can actually prevent people from dying, because it is actually a medical intervention rather than a wearable intervention. So when they go into checking your heart rates and various other things, they can actually send signals to certain hospitals that this particular customer is about to get a heart attack, right? That's the predictive analysis, and that's the direction that we're going into. So that type of data is a good use of data, right? Bad type of data is when what we're doing right now in the Pakistani telecom setup, where we do spam, right? Which is every 4th day I get a message, A-level tuition for math. Now, how do they know that I flunked math? But they still do. So, and that was like 35 years ago. But still, the point is, so that we have to go from bad advertising to sophisticated advertising. And yes, there is a business case for using data to give better products to customers. I'll take one more, and then I have to also start.
Yeah, boss, what's your vision about transforming the traditional telco to a data company? The vision could be an OTT. The vision could be a place where the telco is still relevant, and instead of the traditional discussion which OTT versus the telco player, whether one day could telco become a dumb pipe, or it could be still relevant and become an OTT player. So what's your vision about that data company which you are
It's already fairly dumb if you ask me, right? Because what is happening? We know a lot, but we don't use that information effectively, right? So where we don't know as much as Google and Facebook is when you get onto the internet. So I know that you're sitting over here. I know from the CRM your age, etc., etc., who do you call. I also know what websites you went on to last night, that much. But I don't know how long did you stay on a certain link before you move to another. So that's the deep packet inspection. So on the internet traffic, we lose 85% of the insight. So we know the basics, we know the URLs, but beyond that, even Google doesn't share that thing, right? Information with others. So what is the opportunity for a telco company, right? And somebody asked this question, you asked this question, can we do this thing, right? One of the things that we're looking at is how many people in Pakistan? 160 million telco people in Pakistan, only about 40 million are using 4G kind of thing. Majority of them, or 45 million, using WhatsApp out of 160 million on telecom, right? 115 million people have still not used WhatsApp. Can I get in to create something which competes with WhatsApp, right? Can I create a localized solution on a feature phone like this, which is affordable? We just launched this thing. So they don't go, and this is very Pakistan specific, they wouldn't really have the affordability to go onto a Samsung or to Vivo or whatever else that starts at 6,000 rupees. So in my feature phone at 1,800 rupees, can I give them something that allows them to communicate with others and then capture all the data? So this is how we are positioning. That was my trade secret. I don't know if it's been captured or not, but that's, the thing is that we all have dreams, and this is not necessarily unique or a secret. Everybody in telco world are thinking about the same challenges. Companies which will succeed are the ones that will execute it more effectively.
Last question. Is
Yeah,
the
answer.
business case of 5G, there have been trials and because 4G penetration itself is not
Yeah. 4G penetration is 25% in Pakistan, right? So it's very low, and the companies have invested hundreds of $1 million buying the licenses and then building the infrastructure. So we have not recovered any of the things. 5G is a buzzword. Pakistan sadly was unfashionably late to 3G and 4G, right? We launched 3G 13 years after UK, and 4G again 8-9 years after the rest of the world. So there is a sense of urgency in the government that this time we don't want to be too late. But 5G has not been proven anywhere else in the world. There is hardly any consumer business case for it, and there are no devices. So I don't see that it would be relevant in the next 3 years, at least in the Pakistani context, at all. Now, that doesn't mean that we may not see 5G before 3 years, but I'm just saying that the demographic and use will not be there. What is 5G good at, right? It's a completely different technology and generation, although one assumes that it goes from 2G, 3G, so it's basically a little bit of a faster internet, but the way that it actually operates is quite and significantly different. It is not just about faster internet, which it is, right? It is about low latency. Right? The main benefit of 5G is low latency and being able to connect multiple thousands, exponentially more devices in a small area. And that is where Internet of Things comes in, right? So that is where every single thing in this particular room is connected, your camera, your computer, your watch, your glasses. That number of devices cannot be effectively connected in a 4G environment. So 5G can do that, right? The second thing is about latency. So एक तो होती है डाउनलोड स्पीड के कितनी जल्दी गया, और दूसरी चीज़ ये कि ऊपर कितनी जल्दी उसने इन्फॉर्मेशन दिया, अपलोड या पिंग, राइट? उसमें यह है कि अगर आपकी ऑटोनमस व्हीकल है और गाड़ी चल रही है और एकदम से बंदा है, इट नीड्स टू स्टॉप राइट देयर एंड देन, राइट? या मशीन चल रही है, या आप रिमोट सर्जरी कर रहे हैं, और दैट थिंग हैज़ टू लाइक देयर कांट बी अ लैग बिटवीन व्हेन यू डू समथिंग, और दूसरी साइड पे हार्ट ऑपरेशन है. सो उन चीज़ों के लिए 5G इस्तेमाल हो गया, जो कि अगर आप पाकिस्तानी कॉन्टेक्स्ट देखें, सो इट्स गोना बी अ लिटिल बिट लेटर, राइट? Many operators around the world have done it in small markets, primarily to show off that yes, we can do it, right? The consumer cases are weak. We did a trial here in Islamabad also. We got speeds of 1.4 gig, right? It's great. But Pakistan की इस वक्त की 4G की जो required speed है, जो license obligations के मुताबिक है, वो 2 gig है, ठीक है ना? 2 megabits per second. So अभी तो हम लोगों ने रिक्शा चलाना नहीं शुरू कर दिया, हम कह रहे हैं जी कॉनकॉर्ड लेके आएँ. सो वो बहुत डिस्कनेक्ट है. और अगर हम कैपिटल एलोकेशन की बात करें, चाहे वो इन्वेस्टर का कैपिटल है या हुकूमत का है, हमें ज़्यादातर लोगों को ब्रॉडबैंड के ऊपर लाना है. वो हमारा इम्पेरेटिव है, वो ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. बजाय ये कि मैं एक ऐसी सुपर फास्ट लेन करूं जिसके ऊपर कोई ना आए. We have to be answerable to the masses, right? The work that you guys are doing, it's not about taking some rich people to become super rich. It is to take people out of poverty. Right? Why? When I see poverty, I see people without internet.